everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us this evening for our BCS and Coding Black Females membership launch event. This evening, we've got some people here from BCS who are involved in different ways, and they're going to talk us through how you can use your membership, the different groups that you could be a part of, and be available to answer your questions as well. So I'm going to hand over to Jenna, who is going to get started with an introduction and to tell you a bit about BCS.
Yes, thank you, Charlene. Good evening, ladies, and it's so lovely to finally see some of you all. My name is Jenna, and I work in the policy team, and I am looking after the Coding Black Females engagement plan. BCS is delighted to welcome all of you to join the professional body for IT, and we have a community of around 60,000 IT professionals. Through our own research, we know that Black women are the most underrepresented minority group in the IT profession, and we want to provide Black women with as many professional opportunities as possible. So Black women make up less than 1% of the IT industry, and we want to help change that together by committing to removing barriers to success, and in the process, educate the wider industry on the benefits to diversity in IT. This evening, we have Nick Phillips, who's going to talk you through some of the tools you have access to during your membership and how you can best utilize them. Adam Thilthorpe is BCS's Director of Professionalism and will talk to you about the standards of professionalism and how that will help develop your career as you progress. And we have two different specialist groups represented at this evening's event. We have BCS Women and we have Embrace. BCS Women is a well-established specialist group, and the current chair, Andrea Palmer, will give you some insights into what they get up to and how you can get involved with them. And last but certainly not least is the new specialist group Embrace, set up to look specifically at race in the IT industry. And their current chair, Nazube, will give you some insight into their plans and what they're currently working on. There will be a short 15-minute Q&A at the end of the session where myself and all of the speakers from BCS will do our best to answer any questions that you may have. So I guess over to yourself, Nick.
Make sure I'm unmuted first of all. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here and the rest of the team. I'm going to walk you through some of the benefits of BCS and the tools that you have available to you right now. Now, being part of BCS, there's a lot of tools out there. I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to do a whistle stop tour. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what you've got have available to you. And if you have any questions after, we can jump into that on the Q&A. So let me share my screen. Let's hope it works. So you should be able to see the BCS home screen here. Give me a nod. Yeah, perfect. Great. So what I'm just going to do is just walk you through some of the steps. Now, BCS's tools are separated into 3 different categories. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So as soon as you've gone through to BCS, you can drop into the My BCS Secure area just by going up in the top right-hand corner. You can jump straight in, and there you go. We're straight into that member secure area. Now from here, there's a few kind of placeholders, some key areas that you can jump straight into. There's tools like going to Springboard, which is a tool to help you assess your skills, upskill, learn and develop yourself. You also have development planning tools here like CPD tools. And also we have an archive of webinars that are available to you straight off the bat. Always our most recent ones will sit at the front here. So if there's anything you may have missed from our workshops or any of our online events, you can always jump straight onto it straight there. Below we have tools such as Sophia Plus, which is our framework that we use an awful lot to help benchmark and understand capabilities of individuals. And there's a few other tools here that might just help you learn and develop, such as understanding more about how to get in touch with a mentor or become a mentee, what's going on with our current BCS events, and some sort of research and insights, tools and knowledge that's available straight off as soon as you jump into the website. Now from that, I might repeat myself a few times here because we're now going to go into career, knowledge and communities. So this is these top 3 bars here. So career development, says on the tin, all about tools to help you develop your career. Now, I've already mentioned Springboard, that self-assessment tool, helping you upskill if you're looking to take your next role, what skills you may need, how to do self-assessments such as like your achievements. So, you know, how do you deal with stress? How do you manage people? How do you support your team? And how do you communicate effectively? Tools like that, self-development, as mentioned, and then that career mentoring network, as mentioned before. So always jump in, take a look at each of these areas and see what best works for you. Secondly, we have knowledge and resources. Now, knowledge and resources, there's a whole host of information. BCS has been around for a long time, and we archive an awful lot of our information. So, and it's great for learning. It's great for understanding what's going on in our networks. And it's also great for that extra development, learning and tools that you may need to help progress your career, learn more, or even if it's a case of maybe going to other areas such as standards or qualifications, all of that information is here. So you have the e-learning hub, which is linked to Springboard, but goes into more depth around maybe areas and specialist areas that you may look into in the future, depending on which direction in your career you may be going. You've got access to BCS research and insights. Jenna can probably tell us a little bit more about that, but there's a lot of information out about what's going on and what's changing in the industry and in society and of course government. And then we have access to BCS books. Now BCS books is something that you can access. You can download our books, purchase them, of course, and there will be different areas such as business analysis going all the way to UX and design. So there's always a book there for someone to learn, develop, and hopefully enhance your career. Now, what I think you'll probably all be more interested in, and we'll be going into more depth, of course, later down the line, is communities and events. Hope that's, yep, that's loaded. So community and events is where all of our members come together in different groups, different specialisms to enhance their knowledge, share best practice, and get involved in our communities overall. There are many, many communities out there. There are many specialist groups out there, and it's all available on this page. As soon as you jump into My Communities, you have a few different sections, such as take a look at our BCS events, you can click straight through, look at our calendars and events, and everything that's coming up in the future and onwards will be available here. Like I said earlier, if there is any events that you may have missed, 9 times out of 10, it's usually recorded, so it will be available here at some point for you to watch in the future. If I jump back a step and jump back again, you also have specialist groups. In My Community, oh, excuse me. Here we go. So as I was mentioned, there are many, many groups, many specialist groups. If you're interested in a specialist group specifically in an area of knowledge or expertise that you have you know, an interest in, you can always jump into specialist groups here. Now from here, as simple as maybe looking into health and care or maybe product management, you can take a look at agile methods. There'll be a specialist group for that. And if you're interested in joining that group, you can either get in contact via email, jump onto a Facebook page or Twitter, depending on which we have. And then you can join that group if you see fit and get straight involved with everything within our community. So with all of that in mind, I know it's very quick, but there's many, many tools out there for you. I always advise whenever you're looking at our membership, take a look at each of these areas and you'll probably find something that resonates really well with you. And we're constantly developing this to help you develop, learn and get more involved with our communities and essentially help us shape the rest of where BCS will be going in the future and how we can support society. So any questions, we'll leave it to the end, but thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant, thanks Nick. I'm going to pass over to Adam now. He is our Director of Professionalism and I think he can say a few words.
I'll give it a go.
Thanks Adam.
Okay, so I haven't got any slides or anything, so it's just going to be me for a little bit. I'm going to try and tell you what we're for, what's the point of our organisation, because that's often missed, and talk about some of the issues around whether or not we're relevant. And I think that's particularly pertinent to this group. So we are a not-for-profit charity with a royal charter. So that means we're not just a membership club that has a list of membership benefits and we want you to join our club, although that is important, membership is important, that gives us a mandate and also a deep well of expertise from which to draw. No, the point of us and the point of all chartered bodies and professional bodies really is to protect society and make sure everyone in society benefits from advances in technology, computing, digital, whatever you want to call it. Everyone needs to benefit from this and everyone needs to have the tools and skills and literacy, if you like, that they need to be able to benefit from what's happening in digital. And that's the point of our organisation. So yes, we use membership and yes, we try and provide products and services, but actually it gets worse. What we'd like you to do is stuff for us. What does it mean then, being a not-for-profit charity with a royal charter. We have a royal charter, which means we have this thing handed down to us from the Privy Council. Don't worry about all that stuff. But if you condense all of the language down, essentially we're here to make IT good for society. That's our purpose and that's our mission. On a good day, what does that look like? Well, it looks like us rewriting the curriculum for computing in schools. Everyone knew that the way that we taught IT in schools was a bit of a problem. We were essentially trying to teach children to be really good Microsoft consumers. And even Microsoft thought that was a really bad idea. They thought we've got to do better than this. And at the time, Google wrote to the then Prime Minister and said that the way you're teaching IT in schools is betraying the computing heritage of the UK. And people started to listen. So we've been lobbying for ages saying we need to do something better in schools. And suddenly people started to listen. And they almost called our bluff and said, right, rewrite the curriculum, which we did. Alongside our 60-odd thousand people who pay a subscription and are part of the club, our members, we also have another group called Computing at Schools, or CAS. And this is a group of some 20-odd thousand primary and secondary school educators who are trying to do amazing in the classroom. These are teachers who often don't have computing as a first subject, probably haven't had formal education in it themselves, but are inspired and know that children need to be better at this stuff. They need to understand what digital literacy means and have the opportunity to study world-class computer science if they choose to do so. So we support those groups. And it's not just about iPads in the classroom. It's actually about getting people like yourselves in there, into the classroom to inspire the next generation. This is one of the ways that we can deal with the diversity issue as well. This is a future long-term play on the capability of the UK when it comes to digital. That's what we're talking about, and that's what we're trying to fix. So we want to inspire people. At the moment, the only careers advice you can get in the UK is reruns of the IT crowd on Dave. And we've really got to do a lot better than that to get new faces and new types of people through and interested in what we're going to do in the future. We believe everyone who leaves school in the UK should be digitally literate and they should have the opportunity to study world-class computer science. We know that first one is a bit of a problem. By way of example, a few years ago, we did a lot of work with the Children's Commissioner, we did a lot of research, and out the headlines that came out of that research, it was a very London-centric piece of data, but nevertheless, the headline that came out was 40% of 11-year-olds sexed. Now that can't be good for the future of interpersonal relationships, okay? So we wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful about that. We wanted to help people in the classroom understand what digital literacy means. And actually, when we go out and help primary school children, it's not about iPads in the classroom, as I said, it's about sending out cardboard cutouts of faces and getting the children at the front of the class to hold up those shapes in a certain way that builds a face. Then you get a child out to the front and say, right, can you, just by instructing your classmates, tell them what to do, can you make the face smile? And that's how we start to teach the principles of computer science. And that's what we're really energized about. But we need engaged members to help us do this, to go out to the classrooms, to sit in front of select committees in government and try and help policymakers. At the moment, policymakers think IT, AI, digital, whatever it is magic. So if you take really rubbish data and you do magic, amazing things happen. And sadly, that's not the case, as we know. So we're trying to educate leaders, regardless of sector, whether they're in the private sector and the public sector, whether in finance or retail, what does the digital challenge mean for them? What do they need to do about capability? Why should they get their senior leaders to be mentored by their apprentices so they can understand much more about how the market is moving and how you actually provide leadership in those environments that is meaningful to new entrants? Because actually, it's no longer the job of the IT department to keep the lights on, keep things running. It's no longer the job of the IT department to change stuff. It's actually the job of the IT, of digital, to save the organization often from itself. And that's what we want to do. We want to get people who understand what digital is about and go out to other organizations to understand the environment and the sector within which they operate, to speak truth to power when it comes to some of these issues as well. So that's what we try and do. We have a broad community of people that help us to deal with some of the societal issues where IT and society meet to make IT good for society. Now, I've been lucky enough to have met people through working for the BCS that have helped and shaped my career. And that's one of the great things about being involved in the community, is it puts you in touch with people that you wouldn't perhaps normally meet, or on a really good day, puts you in touch with people that you couldn't afford to be able to work with, or certainly have them work for you. And I've been lucky enough to have people like Ken Elisa look after and help me with some of the connections that I've been able to make. I should say Sir Ken Elisa these days. He now represents the Queen. He's a very embodiment of the establishment, which is just a phrase I like to say to wind him up. You should look him up, Ken Elisa. He's a very interesting character. But you meet these sorts of people through your engagement with BCS. And that's really what we want to do. We want to get everyone, as many people as we can, involved, because we know that the more people that we have involved, the better the outcome for everyone, whether it is organisations that they're trying to deal with us through their SMEs, or whether it is sitting in front of select committees and talking to government about how they should change policy in regards to IT and technology. It seems a bit far-fetched, but actually IT is now at the forefront. Since Cambridge Analytica, IT ethics and some of these issues and conundrums have become mainstream sort of front page news. And we need your expertise, really, to get involved in some of these issues and understand what we can do about some of the problems that are thrown up. Can you have our idea of Western liberal democracy in the same place as Facebook? Should we stop talking about organisations like Facebook as a platform? Because really that's just an excuse for them to have a different relationship with paying their tax. We use platforms as an excuse for organisations. Facebook is an advertising monopoly. It is not an organisation here with our best interests at heart. And those are some of the issues that we need our membership to help inform us, so that we can make good recommendations to organisations and also to politicians and policymakers. Because IT and computing and AI and digital isn't actually magic, and that's an important takeaway, I think, from some of these issues. Also, when it comes to talking to policymakers, things like Netflix isn't bad, of course it isn't, but mass adoption of systems which narrow our choices has an impact on free will. You see, those are the sorts of things that we want to take out of some of our discussions around IT and digital, and they're far away and removed from someone's entry point often into this debate. So that's all I wanted to say, really. I wanted people to get involved, to challenge our preconceived ideas of what professional body needs to look like in the future, and help us to do something meaningful about it for generations coming through. So thank you very much, but I'm going to stick around and answer any questions if I possibly can.
Thanks, Adam. That was fab. I'm really interested, and sure some of the ladies can certainly take away some of the things that you said there. Andrea, over to yourself, the chair of BCS Women.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Adam. So I wanted to talk a little bit about BCS Women and how we can really help you on your journey with BCS. In BCS Women, our goal is to be a powerful and inclusive global network to encourage women and girls into digital and technology. And we have a strategy which is to attract women and girls into technology and then retain and empower them throughout their careers. And as you, as Coding Black Females, are new to the BCS, we as BCS Women would like to try and support you on that journey. And we're offering to give you some mentoring, should any of you want that, and for you to get involved with our committees. You know, for someone like myself who started off just coming along to a BCS Women's event to learn things, and then getting more and more involved from joining the committee and becoming part of the treasurer, becoming a treasurer, and now the chair. And it opens up loads of opportunities that you may not get in your workplace as well. I think it's really important that when you volunteer that you also give back to society. It's not just a one-way thing, it's a two-way side of things. And you also get recognition for the works that you do. I mean, a lot of the women, you know, BCS Women was originally set up by Dr. Sue Black back in 1998, I think. So some of you will be very young at the time when she opened it, started this, but it was really an important place for women to actually have a forum to come and discuss stuff, and that isn't necessarily that easy to do in a male-dominated society, career. When I look at where we are now with women in tech, let alone women of colour, we're at 17%, and it's been like that for the last decade. And so we need to look at different ways, and I'm hoping that some of you will also help us discuss how we can make things easier for you going forward. We like to put on lots of different events, and obviously now that with COVID, we've been doing a lot more online, and some of the events that we do can be listening to inspirational speakers, but also getting new skills. So learning about agile and diversity, or learning about some soft skills about building confidence and other things that you could do along those lines. We also sponsor things like the Lovelace Colloquium, which is for students, university students, who get to present their research and get acknowledged for what they do there. A few years ago we did an appathon where we had 1,000 people around the country learn to code an app in a day, and we look to support tech all the way through the different age groups and in all different parts of societies, and that's really, in a sort of brief nutshell, what we do. But I'm open to questions at the end as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Andrea. I'm not sure if Nazube has actually entered the room just yet, as I know he was actually at another board meeting, but his section is not till 7:05. So does anybody have any questions at the moment that we can try to answer while we wait for Nazube? I've seen there is a couple in the chat. The first one I did see, if you're happy for me to go ahead and answer them, Charlene.
I was thinking, actually, so Faith has just asked a question: how do we join BCS women and other communities? Might be a good one to answer whilst we've got Andrew, who's just spoken.
Well, I think when you first, and I'm hopefully Nick and Jenna will jump in. When you first join BCS, I think you can only tick about 5 different, it is 5 different interest groups. However, once you've actually joined, you can join as many as you want, and provided, I think there was a discussion with Jenna that all of you would automatically become part of BCS Women unless you chose not to, so that you can get involved with the events and be there and have the support on your journey.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, Nick, you might want to give some more how you physically go onto maybe My BCS and join those groups. Are you able to show us that?
Yes, give me just a second as I close my screen down, typically. So the best way of doing this is, like Andrea said, is when you join, you have the option to pick your 5 groups. You also have a few extra specialist groups you can jump into as well. 2 extra groups, which allows you to, diversify as much as you can. Now, with the community tabs, once you go to communities, if I can share my screen. One moment, I will be able to show you this.
Thanks, Nick.
No, not a problem at all. So, is that working for us? Right, there we go. Excuse me, sorry about that. Right, now if I show you, there you go. Right, so all I've done here is I've gone to My BCS, I've gone to communities and events, and then I've picked on branches. So you have branches, specialist groups, international sectors, and then student chapters. So pick whichever one suits you best. Now from here, if I go to just branches, for instance, it'll give us all the locations that we have in the UK specifically at this time. Of course, international, it'll give you international areas as well. Pick whichever area you may be in. Birmingham, for instance. It'll then ask you to join the branch, and then once it's joined, it will then tell you, once that's happened, you will receive any emails, as long as you've, of course, picked the preferences. It will send an email to you of any events that are going on in that specific branch. So essentially, you could pick as many as you like if they were relevant to you. And all of that information will then be dropped into the events page within communities. So any information that comes through on this BCS event page will be shared to you. From that point, it's a case of then joining that group. Of course, because of the world we live in at this time, it's all online. So it's about joining that group, and then you'll be able to, get involved, communicate to those who are in those events, and then start to, essentially make friends and network with those around you. That's the best route of doing it at this time. In the future, of course, there will be more in depth with those groups, but at the time, that's what we have available to us. All right.
Important to point out as well, you won't have access to my BCS until you officially become a member. So I can see that they said, going around in circles on the website, you won't have access to this or the ability to join any of the groups until you are officially a member. Any other questions that we can answer prior to Nazube hopping on the call? Which he's still not. So I can see, are you happy for me to carry on, Charlene, or is there any other questions?
I was going to just ask if there's anything else, in that login, my BCS area, is there anything useful there that you think people might not naturally find out about? Like, is there anything else that we could be shown in that space that would be really useful?
So I use this myself personally as for my own personal development. So I can go into some areas I feel that might be beneficial. Again, I can share my screen and go through some areas, but really those 3 key areas will draw out most of those kind of key points. But let me share my screen again. I should just leave it on, really, shouldn't I? So let's jump back. Part of my role and responsibility is supporting standards. So standards is all about personal development. So this is my area, really. So this is the part I really enjoy to go into. So if I go back to, just jump back to our main page. So like I said, career knowledge and communities are those points. Now, for me, I really like to use Springboard. Now, Springboard's really good for those that are at very different stages in their career. So it's very open to everyone. So depending on where you want to go or what you want to do, you have a few options here. So for instance, on Springboard, if you're a student, drop down the box and it will say, okay, there's some tools here available to you. So there's a CV builder, there's an employer directory, there's tools to support you with mock interviews. I know there was a question there earlier about that. Assessment centers, information like that. If you're aiming for a promotion, there will be other tools out there for you, such as the elevator pitch, a cover letter builder. I know Darren is also in the chat as well. And, if there's anything I've missed, feel free to drop in, Darren. So you've got some direction here. What I always do is every now and again, I just drop straight into Springboard. I'll open up the page. It takes a few seconds to load it because there's a lot of information there. And then you have just a whole host of tools. And this is updated pretty recently. Every now and again, there is a lot of information here, like I said, and it goes back quite a while, but it's always kept relevant is the key point I'm trying to get across here, if not well. So if, for instance, you want to update your cover letter or CV, there are tools here to support you, such as CV 360, which will help you pop your CV. It will parse it, which basically helps you format it the best way possible, and then gives you some key tips and tools on how to update them. There's tools around interviewing, supporting and job hunting. But the one I personally use, which I thought has been really, Adam too will probably be able to confirm this, but to help me with my communication skills or going out there and supporting others or being shareholder and so on, is my career assessment tools, such as like understanding how I'm motivated at work, or how I how my personal resilience is built, and how I can develop that so that I can deal with different types of stress or different type of work commitments, personality types and things like that. So there's, like I said, a lot there. I won't go into too much, but there is a lot here, and I think a lot of people really do miss this area when you don't go and start digging around, because there is just so much there. One last area I probably mention, which I do think is really useful, is in our knowledge and resources. Now, knowledge and resources, like I said, is a whole host of information. BCS books is a really good way of upskilling, but an area that I've always used is just IT Now. So this is our quarterly magazine that we bring out, which is usually going out to the industry, understanding what's going on and trying to keep us up to date as best they can with everything that's going on within digital. You can download all the previous editions and you can go through all this information, and there is so much useful tidbits there which will be able to support you. It will be with employers, people high up in the industry, thought leaders, some of us, and also the possibility of being some of you being able to be involved in IT Now and have your thoughts shared in this magazine. So I would say those were probably the two top ones I would say to keep an eye out for.
Definitely, I agree. Thank you so much for that, Nick. Nazube, I'm gonna hand over to yourself. I will let you introduce yourself. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can. So I will let you introduce yourself and your 10 minutes.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to address this group. I'm Unzube Ufodike. I'm currently the chair of Embrace at BCS. I'm one of the co-founders. In my day job, I work as an entrepreneur in residence and an investments coach at Wyra UK, which is a corporate accelerator. It's owned by Telefonica, and we support hundreds of companies, helping them to raise capital and grow. Raising millions of pounds each month for the companies within my portfolio. And I started in computer science, actually. I started out at Queen Mary, University of London, as a computer science undergrad and did my master's there as well before moving into finance to work in the city at Credit Suisse, first Boston. And then moving on to I started in a tech role in banking, then moved on to a more finance role within Henderson Global Investors. And the rest is history. I've been working in the city for nearly 15 years. And I've been a member of the BCS for most of that time as well, given my background in technology. And last summer, as I'm sure most of you saw the news in the States, and after the death of George Floyd, decided to do more with the platforms that I operate under. So I currently sit on a couple of boards. I'm a member of the IOD and also a trustee at the Africa Center. And within each of these organizations, I try to kind of do something just to create something more sustainable than just an emotive reaction to what we saw unfold. And unfortunately, within the BCS, I had a lot of support as vice chair of the London Central Branch. My colleagues there and the rest of the BCS organization, including Jenna, were super supportive of us setting up and creating Embrace. So that's the kind of 2-minute spiel on Embrace, right? And its beginnings. Now, I guess more importantly, you want to know what is Embrace and what are we doing at Embrace? We've just started, so we only became incorporated more formally as a special interest group in December 2020, but we have a super ambitious lineup for 2021. As you know, the BCS has this mission to bring together, industry academics, practitioners, and government to share knowledge, promote new thinking, inform design of new curricula, share public policy, and inform the public, right? And we are doing the same, operating and serving the BCS and the wider IT profession, but also doing this within a racial diversity. So we're addressing and supporting professionals who would experience racism or who would not necessarily have the same level of access based on their ethnicity. So that's what Embrace is about, promoting the BCS, but also doing this with a little bit more intention around racial diversity. My other co-conspirators are Charlie, our vice chair. We've got David, treasurer, Wilfred, inclusion officer, then Prasad, our secretary, individual, community lead, professional, young professionals lead. Looking to get more of, I mean, if the next question is what can you do or how can we work with the Coding Black Females group, then it's more around looking to get women into the Embrace group to start off, but also to figure out what challenges your community faces. Obviously, the gender focus is something that's tackled within BCS Women a lot more succinctly, but we want to make sure Embrace also addresses gender while we are looking at race, and we don't forget, you know, that you can be Black and female, or you can be brown and female, because that intersection is super important too. The actual activities we have planned are to, for the 2021 period, are to hit certain objectives. So I'll just highlight a couple of them, and they all fall under education, access, and capital. So we're trying to increase accessibility to the BCS by facilitating access for racially diverse individuals into IT-based education, training, and accreditation providers. We're also raising awareness of the BCS within diverse communities to improve access for those individuals into professional IT-based jobs. We want to investigate, then offer solutions to the barriers to entry to the BCS organization. For example, we can facilitate funding for individuals able access to education and accreditation. Very importantly, we want to amplify the work that's being done by other amazing diversity-focused organizations in the ecosystem. I keep saying, you know, we're late to the party, but, you know, we've turned up, so don't count us out. You know, amazing organizations across the UK are addressing racial diversity and have been doing this for many, many years. So we want to partner with them, and we have a long list. So my colleague Joel and Charlie were working over the weekend. They sort of segmented the list, you know, and Coding Black Females is obviously others that are, you know, addressing these real issues. And we'd like to amplify the work that they're doing and find ways to continue to support that. And there are a few others, but that's a high level. I know I've done a lot of talking. I have a couple of minutes left, but I guess my ask really is to find out a little bit more about how, I mean, based on what I've said so far, how you think you might be able to interface with what we're trying to do, and if there are any volunteers that want to be part of this journey. I mean, we need several people, from people that can support us with some of the social media engagement, accessing communities, supporting on the partnership side of things, supporting with some of the execution around the community development. So there is a lot of work. Good question. How do we join Embrace? So I've been speaking with my colleagues. They're going to put it up. They promised you they'll be doing it soon. It's not yet up there, but they have the information. And maybe Jenna, sorry to rope you into this, but she might be able to give us an update on when it would be uploaded to the main website as well as to the My BCS pages. So I've sent some information across.
Yeah, sure. It is underway. It's currently with the web team at the moment, so it will be available on the specialist groups. In the meantime, I will put the email address that you can express your interest to on the chat, so you can make a note of it.
Indeed. And what have we delivered so far? Well, it's been only a few weeks. We've had one official meeting thus far. We have a roadmap for 2021. Like I mentioned, for Q1, there are going to be 5 events that we're already working on. These 5 events have different themes, and they'll have really diverse panelists. So the first one would be around sort of digital communities and how digital communities have helped either, you know, foster relationships, spread disinformation, and engaged and supported mental health, well-being, etc. So just looking at some of the key digital communities that have existed and supported people in recent times. Another is going to be on fintech, and we're looking at some of the, we're focusing a little bit more on the incumbents. So the larger financial services, bulge bracket institutions that are doing more innovation within their institutions, things that can allow for financial inclusion, etc. The third event is going to be around gaming. So we're working with the Overlooked audience. That's a female gaming, a Black female gaming community, to talk about, just gaming and the cool stuff that's happening within that space. Wilfred Obeng is also going to be leading on that. He's the CTO at Audio Mob. They've just raised over $1 million for their growth. He's ex-Google, and he used to be the head of Google's the Google Black Network in the UK. We have another event that's going to be focused on space. So Dr. Elizabeth Nyeko, who's formed this company called Modularity Grid. We've been talking about, because she's just an amazing mind, right? She's a doctor, not just a PhD, but also a medical doctor. I met her back in the day when she used to work at Lehman Brothers. And right now she's doing some stuff around electronics and modular efficiency for power systems in extraterrestrial as well as on Earth. And she has some interesting perspectives on the space economy. So I'm looking to invite her to that. And the fifth one, I forget now, but those are the 5 events we're planning for this quarter. Super diverse set of individuals and speakers. You probably have heard of some of them. Many of them you might not have heard of, but each one is just as brilliant, I promise you. Yeah, so that's something to look out for. I'm just looking at the questions.
Yeah, that's
in
brilliant.
Terms of fintech.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Nidhi.
Sorry?
We're going to a Q&A now, so I'm sure you can answer some of these questions if we hop into a Q&A. Charlene, I'll let you take it away if you're happy to do so.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. That's been really insightful. And I know that people are going to find it really useful to know, they know about Embrace now, they know about BCS Women. And I'll make sure that after this, I'll send an email out as well to everybody so that you know how to sign up to everything that's going on. But thank you very much for all the information you've shared. Okay, so some questions have been coming in and I'm going to take it from the top and work down. So one of the first questions I have is there any chance of BCS helping with mock interviews?
Nick, you mentioned about mock interviews on the Springboard section of my BCS.
Yeah, so I'd say it depends on what you're looking for a mock interview for, of course, but the tool is available there on the Springboard page. We also do have mentor-mentee. You can become a mentor through BCS, and we have a lot of mentors out there at the moment, so they may be able to support you with that. I know that Darren is here as well. He might be able to lend some information to that as well.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. So yeah, on Springboard, I mean, best way to describe Springboard is soft skills and non-technical stuff. And so there is a large array of videos, tutorials, engagement elements. And so I would go on there and utilize that. I think for me, the interview bit, there is an interview questions that helps kind of work through how you might position stuff, how you might do that. But for me, there's probably 2 things that would help you in that. One of those was the thing that Nick mentioned, and that is getting a mentor. And I don't think you can kind of underestimate just how useful that can be. It's somebody that's going to work with you. And I know one of the questions that came through about how you choose a mentor, you choose by category or by specialism or geographically. So, if you want to have more than one mentor, I would definitely go on there and start kind of looking actually who you might want to work with, but have a very good view of what you want them to help you with. And, that may be, I just want somebody to help me with interviews, who works in a HR environment, who works in a space that is recruiting large teams of people. That might be a starting point. But with regards to in the Springboard area, go through that, find out what in there is useful for you, because we're all in different situations and different times of our career. The tool in there that I would definitely spend time on, as well as your interview, is the CV 360. And for me, how that will help with you is, when you are applying for jobs, 60% of CVs are now viewed by a computer, not a human being. So, you may look at your CV and say, well, I'm spot on for this job. Why am I not getting interviews? the first hurdle on all of that is actually getting to interview. So putting your CV through that process, it will score you. It will tell you how your CV has been scored. And, you know, one of the things, if you've made a CV quite some time ago, those errors have probably been sat in that CV for quite some time. The computer will pick up those errors. And actually, you might keep updating your first paragraph and thinking, well, why am I not resonating? Why am I not connecting? It's because beyond that first paragraph, that's where all the errors are that the computer's picking up. And so for me, going through that process, one of the key things of that tool is it provides a little word cloud of how you're being perceived. So when you look at that little word cloud, it might say stuff, strong leader, good management skills, and not actually reference any of your technical skills. And that will be how the computer's viewing you. So based on that, you can quite clearly say, well, now I see why I'm not being, you know, engaged with, why I'm not being contacted with. So I would go through multiple of those tools. I would go through the CV 360 and create maybe multiple versions of CVs, depending on which job you're going through. Then go into the interview section and then work through some of the stuff. Actually, what is it that I want to communicate? What is it I want to do? Because I don't think it's as straightforward as, you know, doing interviews and saying, well, that's it. You know, an interview might be a presentation. Some of it might just be doing an online test. There's loads of different tools in there to help assist you with that. But I think part of it that won't jump out immediately to you is trying to find some mentors who can give you some small, short, helpful tips that might say stuff like, don't talk too much at interview, actually ask this question. These are the kind of things that are happening in current trends. Start talking about this kind of stuff because I think that will resonate well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So the next question I've got is BCS involved in, or do they have any links to groups that support digital inclusion? For example, providing broadband and devices to individuals and families that need them for work or education during the COVID lockdown or more generally?
Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of happy to go with that one. I guess BCS are currently working analysing the digital kind of divide and landscape that kind of provides, and understanding how we can bring together campaigns and activities from all of our member groups, and determining how we can use this to, you know, have impact and lobby government and address the digital divide in the most public way possible. I don't know if Adam, you've got anything to also add to that?
Yeah, I put a quick note in the, just in case we didn't get to it. But yeah, so through, for government, we run the consortia that makes up the National Centre for Computing Education, which is ourselves, Raspberry Pi and STEM Learning. And through the group that we have that I mentioned earlier, Computing at Schools, CAS. And through those groups, we're able to support others. I mean, no, we don't have the ability to go out like the BBC do and get people secondhand or hand-me-down laptops and redistribute them. But we do support those groups that do. And we are looking to have a more concerted response with regards to broadband access and the policy agenda around, you may remember, it was actually a Labour Party manifesto, and I know that didn't go spectacularly well, but there's an interesting policy idea about whether or not broadband should be universal in the same, or should be part of a national utility drive. It's already part of critical national infrastructure, but actually how do we make sure that people have access to the internet in a way that is more equitable than it currently is. So we are involved in various different policy initiatives that impact on that agenda, as well as sort of, if you like, boots on the ground support in local communities through some of our groups. But we're working with others to try and build a more coordinated response at a national level that does something meaningful about the problem.
Thank you very much. Another question we have is, how do we get involved with policy making? Will it be advertised in newsletters, or do we just sign up somewhere? And I'm going to kind of extend that also to when Nick was speaking, I think it was Nick, spoke about IT Now and those sorts of publications. Like, how do people get involved with policy making, but also publications that are going out? So the publications one's actually quite easy. We're always looking for people with opinions. Okay, so we want, if you've got something you want to say, and you can write an article or you can be part of an interview, we would love to hear from you. The best way of doing that is coordinating it through your groups and being active with those in those committees. But we're always looking for articles, for long pieces, for short pieces with regards to content. So if people want to
If members want to write that or publish that, there's various different ways you can do that. Yes, IT Now is one, but we've got journals, we've got other things as well that allows you to do that. And one of those ways is through some of our newsletters and things like that, but also through Twitter, where we're quite active in Twitter with both finding good content and talking to people about what they might be able to do, but also getting people involved in our policy work. What we do is we do quite a lot of snap surveys out to members, and we use various different mediums to do that. But to get one of the more successful ones that we've done recently, well, there are lots of successful ones, but one I'm particularly interested in was about ARM, and about whether or not ARM should be sold to an American, to NVIDIA in the States. And what that does is throw up a policy agenda that we've been running for some time around what does digital sovereignty look like. Brexit, for good or bad, you might imagine what I might think about it, but anyway, Brexit, for good or bad, threw up this, everyone was talking about sovereignty without really talking about what they meant by sovereignty. But how can you be digitally sovereign in this day and age? Our countries are almost, it's a Google country, used to be companies, right? Microsoft company, a Google shop, whatever. Now, how do you have digital sovereignty in this day and age? And what might that look like? And actually, if we want to grow entrepreneurship and digital entrepreneurship in the UK, what does success look like? And I don't mean an exit point with regards to how do you exit successfully at 10 million quid. I'm talking about if ARM is part of our critical national infrastructure and one of our few sort of unicorns, one of our massive tech success stories, why are we selling it off? Why are we selling it off when actually we should be nurturing what that organization does and where it might go next? So, but also protecting that IP that is part of our sort of tech IP, if you like, of the UK, one of our few success stories. So all of these agendas get thrown up in policy debates. So yes, we might go in front of a select committee and draw our members to help us do that. I mean, I'm like Jenna, I've sat in the back, I'm one of those people that sometimes pass notes or sit at the front and do select committee hearings. But it's great when we get our members up there to do that, because actually these select committees are quite closed shops. And it's annoying when you see the same old faces go in front of the select committee and they know all the MPs by their first name. And that's annoying. And I like to go and shake the tree a little bit so that when we're asked whether or not Track or Trace is doing a good job, we'll say, well, I don't really want to comment. Because the fact of the matter is Dido Harding, after she ruined TalkTalk, was then hired to be CEO of Track and Trace. And you can't complain about it because her husband is John Penrose MP, who is, believe it or not, the anti-corruption czar for the UK government. I mean, you couldn't make it up. But if those sorts of issues get you excited, then get involved. And I think Twitter, following our policy account, is one of the fastest ways to get involved in some of those issues.
Yeah, definitely. I've put the email address there for the policy team and myself. As Adam said, I do work in the policy team at BCS. Please do follow the Twitter. We're always after people who are willing to give opinions, speak, make comments, even in just, press releases. So there's always advertisement in our newsletters. They will also have our current consultations that we're responding to. So please feel free to always, contribute to either one of those email addresses or get in touch via the policy Twitter.
Thank you. And sorry, just with those email addresses, if somebody's got something that they want to comment on or discuss that maybe you haven't mentioned, can they kind of just send it to that and then you'll look into it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, another question we have: is there a way we can benchmark our skills? When I was having an interview, I think earlier with you, Jenna, and some of the and a couple of people as well, I can't remember who it was now. It was mentioned that there was an assessment that people could do. I'm not sure if that's the assessment that we've just spoken about with the CVs, but is there like an SFIA assessment as well? How can people benchmark their skills and where they're at?
Yeah, I will hand over to Nick and Darren on this one. They are more qualified than I.
Yeah, I'm happy to help with that. I know Adam has also popped something in there around the Sophia and Sophia framework, which is a perfect route to go down. So assessment tools, there is Sophia, the skill frameworks of the information age is one of the tools that we use to help benchmark individuals. It's also what we use to assess our standards as well. So another assessment tool is our standards that are available through BCS. I know there's also a question a little bit further down around RIT Tech there, but those are great tools to use. I don't know actually if Adam, you want to talk a little bit more around Sophia and how to make the most of that, or if Darren wants to get involved in maybe areas of looking at role model, but there is a lot of tools to assess our skills through BCS.
Yeah, I would say the first thing to go into when you're in the members area is go to Browse Sophia Plus. And there what you can do is you can look at all of the skills, and I get it wrong, which is embarrassing because I am actually the chairman of the Sophia Foundation, but anyway, that's a different point. But there's 90 odd skills, and if you look through them, you can click on them and see that these skills operate at different levels. What do I mean? You could look at project management or program management or IT governance or a particular developing role and see what skills, competencies, qualifications, experience, profile, typical daily work activities and tasks that a person operating in that role at that level does. And then you could see, if you were in that area, what skills you need to develop to move up that, to move further up along that role, to become more senior, more competent, if you like, in that role, but also how you could use that skill set to take you into other new directions. What skills do I need to get into cyber? What skills do I need to get into project management? What skills might I need? And what type of person, what does that person look like to get into these different roles? So you can look at it as to, what does someone look like in a given role at a given level? Or you could say, this is my skill set. Well, which roles might be appropriate? I might be an 80% match here, might be a 50% match here, and I can figure out the gaps in my own skills to say, right, I need to learn a little bit more about this area if my aspiration is to go into cyber, for example. And that's a really good tool. And you can browse it and have a little look around, and that will lead you on, and it links through into, I don't know, other sort of qualifications, certifications, networking, member groups, other professional bodies even that might have a particular nuance to that role. We're not precious, if you like, about you using BCS stuff all the time, but we want to be the how you sort of waymark where you need to go next to sort of develop your career, depending on what you want to do. Lots of people talk to us about career pathways, and we do build career pathways, but actually what we do recognise and do want to encourage more of is the diverse nature through which people arrive in IT or technology or digital, and where they might move next. I believe that there'll be fewer and fewer people who self-identify as an IT professional, but everyone's going to be involved in digital. So how do we help those people plot their career path towards whatever is the motivating factor and the goal for them?
Thank you very much. Okay, next question. So I know that we have run over a little bit, by the way, but I don't think we'll be going for that much longer. So feel free to stick around, but we'll also have the recording available on YouTube after the session, which I'll also share with everybody via email. In terms of fintech, is there anything looking at the impact of digital identities? I think it's fintech, right, Denny, as opposed to fintech, right? Yeah.
Yes, that would be fintech.
Okay, cool. That's fine.
I guess if I clarify, so that question was more to do with, I guess, the impact of things like digital identities, particularly in terms of accessing your finances, and that impact on diversity and people who could actually access it.
Yeah, totally. And that issue is a really good policy agenda issue because it cuts across so many of our specialist groups. And some of our specialist groups have sort of addressed that issue, but coming from their area of specialism, unsurprisingly. But it's a major policy agenda. How do we make sure that everyone benefits, which is actually go right to the top, is the point of our organisation, our Royal Charter, ensure that everyone benefits from advancements in digital and the education they're in. So that's what we want. That's what we want to see, and a lot of the work that we do is trying to address exactly those issues. We know that the more diverse the team, the better the outcome. End of story. And so, how do we influence that and get more people involved? Because the fintech, we've got entrepreneurs, specialist group, and other areas. But there are two areas that we're particularly interested in. One is fintech, and the other is retail. and actually reimagining both of those organisations. You've got Anne Bowden at Starling, is seen very much as a bit of the darling of the fintech world, and of course then there's Monzo snapping at their heels, although they've hit some headwinds recently themselves. So what does it look like? What is fintech, what is retail going to have to look like? Not just post-pandemic, because these issues are already coming to the forefront anyway, but what is a true digital retail experience? It's not just whether or not ASOS are going to buy up all of Debenhams, but you can see these traditional markets are being completely reimagined by people who start with digital as their sole purpose. So what's going to happen? Well, we need to be aware and cognizant of some of the options and issues, depending whether it's a cyber issue, whether it's a near-side security issue, whether it's a diversity issue, whether people who rely on cash, which may well be older generations, what does that mean with regards to whether or not where you put ATMs, and how can you use data to help you make better decisions around these things? And then how can you use data? How can you keep that data safe? And how do you then support things like the NHS, which has a massive data problem? How do you make sure that, put it this way, I was talking about this issue. We've got one of our organizational membership launches I went to was Bernardo's. And I thought I was going to talk to Bernardo's about our values match for our two organizations. But it was in fact a very heavy conversation around cybersecurity, because they have to get data, which is often drawings, photographs, all sorts of things, to case officers dealing with issues that often have criminal proceedings running alongside them. The CIO of Bernardo's basically can't sleep at night worrying about data breaches because of what that would do to people's lives. And it's interesting that when you start to address some of these issues, it takes in all sorts of different directions. That's why we need more people like yourselves involved in membership, so that we can be more insightful with the policy agenda and the questions that were asked more and more by government to get involved with. We have really good dialogue with Department for Education, with DCMS, DWP and others around how do we use digital to solve common problems. So yeah, whether it's fintech, all of these things it's our bag, and we were interested in it. We need your help.
Thank you. Oh.
If I could just add to that real quick. So it's a really good question. And I think on the back of everything becoming more digital and everything becoming more of an algorithm, we need to be, as my colleague Adam has mentioned, super aware of who is in the room making those decisions around the algorithms, because we don't want to codify the human errors that are currently in place that keep systemic issues. For instance, I'm sure you read the story in the Metro a couple of days ago around how this family in California, a Black couple, had their home valued by a realtor, and they thought something was up, that their property was worth a bit more. So they got their white friend to pose as the owner, and they got a whopping $500,000 differential on the value of their property, because when they got their white friend to pose as the property owner, it automatically became more valuable, right? We know about the GCSE scandal. We know about another American an American CEO from an IT company who had issued credit cards in his company, and he and his wife got credit cards from his company, and it turned out his wife had a lower credit limit than he did. And he was like, this is wrong. My wife actually is better at money and managing money than I am. So, when it comes to race, gender, and financial inclusion, we don't want to codify the errors that are currently in place that create these structural inequities. And having people in the room that represent those diverse groups is critical, as Adam mentioned. So on the topic of digital identities, thinking about other demographics that would not necessarily be part of that conversation is super important when creating or rolling out any form of technology. Yeah.
So my big thing at the moment, well, it has been for a number of years, but is unintended consequences. That's that's a big part of our agenda, and that's what I was talking about with regards to 40% 11-year-olds sexed. It's not that Snapchat went out to make sure that the world prepubescent teenagers shared more naked photographs of each other. Actually, it was about the mass democratization of encrypted messaging. On a good day, Arab Spring, and on a bad day, 40% 11-year-old sex. So the unintended consequences of our action in a world of ubiquitous digital and IT conundrum. Yeah, and also you can codify the problem. If you still ask a lot of people who went to Eton, which is the best school to go to, they're all going to tell you it was Eton, right? So that's still just a truth. As much as it is with digital as it is with a load of old white men sat in a room.
I think that the topic of digital identities is actually quite interesting, and it'd probably be quite good to do a whole session around that, if you know what I mean, because I can imagine that there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of other things that could come out of that as well. So I think we should definitely look into that for a future session. I've got another question here around mentorship. So for somebody to get involved with mentorship, I think we had a look at in the My BCS section, there was a way of finding a mentor, wasn't there?
Yeah, yeah, and I would recommend that that's where people start, but if they're unable to find what they're looking for and they've got a specific requirement, then please reach out to BCS Women and we'll try and fill that gap.
Is there an email address for BCS Women? How do people get in contact?
We've got once you join, you should be able to just email us through that.
Right, okay, great. So
I think it's easier that way than trying to give people a whole load of email addresses. Or maybe, Jenna, we can put a list together to send out.
Yeah, I would suggest at the start going through your main email. Yeah. Also on the chat, I have put up where you access the mentoring tool. So you can go in and find kind of your match if you like. But yeah, through the specialist group areas, there's an email address for BCS Women, and I will go through that route.
Thank you.
A random segue on mentorship, sorry, just wholly recommend and encourage everyone to find as many mentors as you can. When I was at university, I had like 6 mentors. So I was one of those that would always want to learn as much as I could from as many people as possible. So I had someone that was mentoring me on things relating to finance, a much more senior person in financial industry, someone else in technology, and someone else working within community and societies, so those kind of qualities you're looking for, be it leadership, be it more technical, try and find someone for that. You can't, or no one person can mentor you on everything. So just, try and get as many as you can to cover all the bases that you want to develop is my recommendation.
Yeah, different perspectives are good.
100%.
Thank you. We've had a few questions around levels of membership and that sort of thing. So I think they're probably all going to come back to the same sort of thing, to be fair. So one of the questions I had in before the session was, I have joined as a professional member. Is there support to become chartered?
I'll hand over to Darren for this one. He will be our man for the job.
Actually, I don't know whether Nick is the chartered expert on this one.
Fight it out.
Nick's probably a little bit, yeah. I think Nick Wing's on an arm wrestle on that one.
Okay, so the question was about professional membership and the route onwards to chartered. So yes, of course, there is a lot of there's a lot of tools.
We can't hear you, Nick. You've gone on mute.
Typical. I knew it was going to happen. So apology. Like I said, like I was saying, as you weren't able to hear, is that yeah, there's loads of tools out there to actually get yourself over to chartership. One of those conversations we've already had with, Adam talking about the Sophia framework is a great way of doing that. But there is also other tools out there such as, myself. So my role in the business is actually to support individuals and organizations in achieving standards, whether that be RIT Tech, CITP, Chartered Engineer, Incorporated Engineer. There are many standards out there. So I'm happy to offer support and guidance with that. We also have assessors who go through our standards, who can also, who assess our standards, of course, who are available to support. Some of them are also mentors as well, so that ties back into that mentee relationship and that networking. And many of them support in our communities as well. So on our branches or specialist areas, you'll start to see that quite a few of our assessors will be a CITP in a specialist area, and one of those specialist groups will usually have a CITP or someone that is a certified in that area. speaking or being part of that branch. So there are many, many ways of being part of that, and of course, developing yourself onwards to chartership or other standards if you see fit.
Thank you. And another question around RIT Tech. So someone started with an associate account, applied for RIT Tech, and then once they achieve that, what's the next step?
So the next step is, as we've carry us through the whole conversation, it's entirely up to you. But if I was to give you any guidance, chartership is always a nice level to go to, and something you should look to achieve, depending on where you are going within your career. Like I said, there are other standards out there that might fit you better, whether it be in health and care or be in engineering. So my suggestion is, first of all, to be able to go onwards to chartered, you need to be a professional member. So you'll have to go from associate member onwards to professional, and that's a case of upgrading your membership. Once that's available to you, it's then taking that course, as I've already mentioned, onwards, whichever way you decide, to achieve chartered. And like I said, there's multiple ways of supporting you, and I'm there for that as well.
Fantastic, thank you. I think we've covered all the questions. That's been really, really useful. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody managed to take loads of benefit away from this evening as well. For our launch event, yay! I hope you've all managed to sign up as members, and if you haven't, I think that you should have had quite a lot of insight as to how to do that this evening. I know one of the questions people have had is around finding a supporter. Do get in contact if you need support with that, because I can provide support with that. So do let me know if you need anything, if you need any questions answered, really. Either I'll answer what I can, or I'll pass them on to the rest of the team at BCS as well. But thank you very much, everybody. That's been amazing. I look forward to doing more events and having more things set up. We've recently sent out the engagement pack. So we've got a schedule of events and engagement that we'll be doing throughout the year. But if there's anything that you would like from this, do let me know, and we'll do what we can to get that in place for you as well.
Definitely. Thanks very much, Charlene.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Take good care.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.